So people like me who haven't read Golfing Machine,
Yeah.
can you summarize what is the point of that book, or what is the philosophy behind that book?
Yeah, it's a mechanical book that explains the geometry of a stroke. I would say it's kind of like, if I were to use other sports, it's the founding book of how to play. It explains, the rim is 10 feet off the ground,
Right.
the free throw line is 15 feet.
Gotcha.
It explains the parameters of how the swing is, of how to swing.
Right.
And I would say that Mac built upon that work, and that in the process of building upon that work, he had a number of followers, myself being one, and in teaching those principles systematically day after day after day, patterns reveal themselves. Large scale, easy to see patterns. If you did a large study, if we had the money to do a large scale study, there would be major differentiating patterns that poor players do that separate them from really good players. And I wasn't learning any of those when I was in college. Right? I was learning things that didn't make sense.
So are you experimenting on yourself? Are you going out the course and were you the first one who was stacking it and tilting it?
I would say the three-dimensional description of the swing, or the stacking and tilting that you're referring to, came out of the way Mac taught me to measure the swing. And it was really in his description. It just really wasn't brought out in such a way as to make it easy to understand.
And could you describe that in layman's terms? Is it even possible?
Yeah. I would say, as I said a second ago, tilting. Tilting is a primary movement. You tilt to the left, you tilt to the right, you tilt up, you tilt down. Tilting is how a person tilts, or to stay centered or stacked, is the hypothesis of the system. And so if you picture a shark, it moves from side to side like a snake, right? And if you picture a whale, it moves from up and down, right? And as people, we can do both. And how people learn to tilt and twist throughout the swing is what we're talking about here.
And correct me if I'm wrong, your way of doing it is like you're trying to minimize the amount of movement.
Well, first I would say that not necessarily. I would say we're trying to explain how the movements work. Because I think most people think it's just two turns and a swish. You just turn back and turn through, and that's all it.
Right.
That's all there is to it. It would be nice if it were that way. But that kind of instruction is not a real explanation of how a swing works. And our agenda was really to make that description that you asked about as simple as possible, and how to make taking a lesson as simple as possible. In a sport that seems to have all these different ways of playing. Here's a question for you. What is it that they all do, right? What are the commonalities that are exhibited by these game's great players? What would they be? They all have different grips, and they all stand differently. They all aim differently.
I got an answer for you.
Yeah.
Repetitive motion.
Well, they do a repetitive motion, but what defines the repetitive motion, right? They have something they can do over and over again to predict the results, right? So I'm about building a predictive model. I'm about teaching someone like you a system to organize all these random thoughts that you have about playing golf to make it easy. And then about making a model swing. Your football background, Chip Kelly had a system. Mike Martz had a system. Your coach where'd you go to school?
North Carolina.
He had a system. He had an offensive system, had a playbook. When you went in, the first thing you learned was the playbook. Right? That's what I've got. I got a playbook here.
So would you compare it to say you have basically the spread offense?
That's a good analogy. There's people who've made that analogy. I try to not analyze myself in that way. It might come across wrong, but I would say that the spread offense is a way of making it to a lay person. But we have a playbook, and then we have a model. And
is your playbook all swing, or is it philosophy as well?
Well, it's you can tell by I'm talking. There's a philosophy there.
Yeah, I can.
Right?
So let's tell me what it is.
Well, my philosophy first deals with defining the function of the swing and what it's supposed to do. You know, your job in football is to score points. My job in playing golf is I have to hit the ball consistently, I have to hit it far, and I have to control the direction.
Right.
So I have 3 jobs as a golf player and a golf coach to teach to people. And then I have to build a model swing or a set of model plays, okay? You know, you have plays, different plays in your playbook, right? I got different models in my arsenal. But I have to build one of these swings that produces those 3 functions. Right? So by us talking, you can probably tell that there needs to be a way for a person like you can start to learn how to play golf.
Yeah.
And not have to tear yourself down, and have a way of organizing all these random thoughts into something that makes sense. You have to have something to attach to. And that's what I'm really referring to when I say a system.